Boom. Hey, what's going on, guys? Byron Rogers here. Recently, I was given a very interesting task with regards to executive protection, and kind of what I had to do was pretty cool. You know, I've done a lot of different things, been to over 60 countries, well over, I've worked every client demographic that the industry has to offer that I know of. And I've worked, armored stuff, jewelry stuff, money transports, all kinds of things. But this was different. This was special. I was asked to complete a scuba pipeline for one of my clients in order to assist him in scuba as he scuba dives. So I effectively got to work, and I call this acquiring your EP scuba bubble. You know what I mean? Like how we do it in the Marine Corps and the military. You got your scuba bubble. You can operate underwater. You can operate scuba. So this is an EP scuba bubble. I don't know anyone else who had to do this. Anyway, so check this out. I was kind of blazing a trail when it comes to this one. I was working with SCUBA Center Temecula. They had fantastic gear, fantastic personnel. Phil Rubino was my instructor. I called him Scuba Phil, and we will call him Scuba Phil during this video for all intents and purposes. Awesome instructor, good guy, can't say enough positive things about him. He was firm enough to make sure we understood the content, but very easy to learn from, not a stressful human being. So it was a really good environment for learning, needless to say. A lot of this stuff that we had to go through and learn was very high, like prac app. We did a lot of practical application, and beyond that, we did a lot of testing. I had effectively about a month and a half to get a number of different scuba certifications. I went on ahead and got my PADI open water certification. I got peak performance buoyancy. I got advanced open water. I got enriched air, nitrous oxide. And then I went and got rescue diver certified as well to complete the pipeline. So I did all of that in 11 dives in roughly a little over a month. So I was like basically going to school for scuba and jammed it all in. Kind of through the whole process, I was kind of like thinking, what am I going to do for my client? Why am I going to be doing this? Why am I going to be here? It's not like, I can try to protect them from a shark, or like, how it is. You like in your mind, you try to come up with, but I was kind of like, well, let's stick with the process. Let's really understand this as best we can and see what we can do. So for my advanced open water certification, we did a number of different dives. We did an open water recovery dive. We did a navigation dive. We did a deep dive. We dove a wreck. We did a night dive as well. So we did those 5 dives. It's pretty sweet. It's really kind of, I learned a whole lot and didn't realize how much I was learning until I started actually diving out, when we went on our first operation with the client. Overall, when it comes to scuba diving and executive protection, I learned that there's a lot more to this game than just like protecting your client from a shark. You know what I mean? It's kind of a funny thought, but the reality of it was that I think it is actually a very good thing to do. Very good thing to be able to do, a good service to be able to render, because once I finally got down in the water with my client on my first mission, I started to realize, this is a high net worth individual, a very important person, and it's not a bad idea to have someone down there with him, watching over him, watching his computer, making sure that his numbers are correct, making sure that he's comfortable in the water, making sure that I have, his backup oxygen if something happens, understanding the protocols for rescue diver, all the different things I learned in my rescue diver certification to help troubleshoot any of the problems that could come up while we're underwater. The instructor, or not the instructor, but the guide while we're on these excursions he's leading the dive. So yeah, he's paying attention to everyone, but he's also navigating and doing a number of different things. So his bandwidth that he can devote to said client is actually greatly diminished. So having an EP diver down there with medical training and an understanding of what's needed to troubleshoot any problems that may come about while you're in the drink, as we like to say, is actually a fantastic idea. And so I was able to just focus primarily on my client, focus. I could swim around him, look at his computer, see what his numbers are at, and really make sure that he was able to navigate the dive and enjoy the dive as safely as possible. A few things that you should go over with your client if you're going to do this, I think it's very important to go over the dive with the guide there, how the dive's going to go. You want to go over the conditions of the dive. You want to go over the water temperature at the surface, down below. You want to go over what the water is doing. Or is there a tide? Is there undercurrent? How the water's moving. Why you're going to get in the water. You're going to swim into the current at first. You're going to, all those different things. You want to go over what types of things that you're going to see underneath the water, what types of dangerous things are underneath the water, do's and don't touches, hand and arm signals for how much oxygen you have. You have 2,300 bar. For us, it was the thousands to the side and then the hundreds up top. You want to really button down your hand and arm signal language so that if there's any special signals your client needs to give you, or signals in general that your client needs to give you, all of which you'll learn through PADI anyways, you want to be able to do those things efficiently and effectively throughout the dive. For me, I stayed during the dive. So, you do your brief, you brief your client on the dive, you listen to the brief that the instructor is going to give you about the dive, how the dive's going to go, conditions of the dive, things you're going to see, all that stuff. Then you do a smaller brief with your client, talk about safety procedures if anything happens. Hey, if we do get separated, look around for 1 to 2 minutes and then go to the surface. We'll find each other that way. All the different kind of considerations for any type of trouble that you could have. I'll be over your right shoulder for the most part, right behind you to your right or left. So if you do have any oxygen, any issues with your air, you just turn around. I'll be right there with my octo to go ahead and get you right. Different considerations like that. You go over all of those. You make sure you have a seal on you so that you can do rescue breathing and things like that in the water if you need to. You can make sure you have something to poke sharks away with. You don't want to poke them and stab them. You want to push them because you don't want them to turn and bite you and attack you. Those are other considerations, but primarily you want to make sure you're equipped to pay attention to your client and make sure everything goes well with them while they're in the drink. And that PADI certification process that I went through with those various qualifications, the open water, the basic open water certification got me started. The peak performance buoyancy really got me to a place where I was really good with my buoyancy and I was able to just be chilling and relaxing during the swim. The enriched air, I didn't get to really necessarily use the enriched air, but it's good for me to understand all the different things that can go wrong with regards to air and how to vet the air before we use it and things like that. So when we get given air, you want to test it and all that stuff. You really learn how to do that really good in the enriched air package, part of the package. All the advanced open water stuff that we did, the night dive, the navigation dive, the retrieve, how to retrieve something out of the water dive, the diving the shipwreck, the deep dive at 90 feet, that stuff is awesome for just giving you a good understanding of how to do different types of missions underwater, how to work underwater, how to tie knots underwater, how to descend to 90 feet, swim around, and what it actually feels like when you're that deep in the drink, And then ultimately the rescue diver course was fantastic, just to teach me how to recognize various different health concerns, the difference between a heat casualty and a heat stroke and what to do and the rescue breathing associated with that and how to get your gear off while maintaining breathing and moving the client, moving the patient and things like that to safety and what to do with the different O2 options for getting them oxygen and all those different considerations. So at the end of the day, what I learned was how to conduct an executive protection mission with a client. And I actually learned a lot about how really valid it was to have someone underwater with a VIP who is concerned primarily for their safety. And if you get those components right, I think you can do a really good job. You go out with the client, you get your gear, you check all your gear, you check all his gear, her gear, you do a good brief, you make sure that the person taking you out is giving you a great brief, talking to you about all the various conditions to the dives and to the dive and everything that you're going to see and everything that you should expect. You also want to make sure you do a one-on-one brief with your client so you guys are on the same page with all of your communication techniques, tactics, hand and arm signals. When he is going to let you know when his oxygen gets halfway, you know how you're going to communicate those types of things, whatever hand and arm signals you're going to use for telling what numbers and all that stuff, what symbol you're going to use in order to communicate to your client, hey, I need to know what your oxygen is doing right now. Let them know that you'll be checking on him, let him know where you're going to be, whether you're going to be up over his right or left shoulder, or just right behind him, so he knows if something happens just to turn around. You come up with all that stuff ahead of time, then you hop in the drink together, you go for the dive, and everyone else focuses on everything else, and that's great, but you focus on your client. And I actually felt really good about the overall operation and the way that it worked, because it really validated it as a positive place for an executive protection agent to be. Executive protection lifestyle, night dive, working on getting that scuba bubble. Can't see my gear, but there it is, stand by. The night dive was awesome. It was like being in a whole nother world. It was black, dark, cold, but it helped alleviate fear with regards to diving at night. I'm from the Bahamas, so I mean, we really don't go in the water at nighttime. Only tourists do that. You know, like going in the water when virtually everything is feeding on each other is not really a very good logical idea to me and to most people I know. So we really don't go in the water at nighttime. So for me, the night dive, doing that, I had to kind of man up a little bit. And it was creepy and it was cold. And yeah, we saw a whole nother world. We saw some little horn sharks. And then at one point in time, I don't know if you'll even be able to see it in the film, but we were looking at these two horn sharks and they're swimming together, and you see this black thing whip past one of us and whip in and out of the camera. It's very quick, you can barely see it. But it was apparently a seal. The other guy who was doing the dive with me didn't see it, but our instructor saw it. Nonetheless, freaky moment. Definitely had to just kind of surrender to whatever came next at that moment. Nonetheless, the night dive really helped me, I don't know, just get more comfortable in the water, you know. There was this whole big abyss next to us, and I was on the side of the open water, the abyss side, which, you know, it just felt like anything could come out there and grab me. It's a little bit creepy. The other dives, the recovery dive and the navigation dives were really good to learn how to navigate underwater and learn how to recover something underwater. But really, for me, it was more about learning how to work underwater, learning how to tie a knot efficiently and effectively underwater, and learning how to use different search techniques if something happened to the client, you know, how to use expanding square in order to find the client, and how to use different methods where we, you know, basically swim in different rows up and down in the water to look for a client, and different methods for, you know, searching for someone who you've lost. Ultra useful in California where we went. The water is so murky. We only had maybe 5 feet of visibility, which was crazy. So we had to get that work done in less visibility, which made it for the even better training. The other dive that really stuck out to me was the deep dive to the wreck. We dove the Yukon off the coast of San Diego, and it's about 90 feet down in the drink. And for me, this was an experience of a lifetime. I've had a lot of experiences, but, you know, going down, it felt like it took 10 minutes for us to get down there. And then you're down there 90 feet and you look up and it's a little bit lighter, but you can't even see the top. And you know, if anything happens while I'm down here, we got to troubleshoot it down here. We got to solve the problem down here. There's no going up. We're deep, we're in the drink, and there's no going up. You can try to swim up. You won't make it, but you can try. You know what I mean? Like, so, and then you'll get the bends, and then all this other stuff will happen. Horrible, you know? So you blow your lungs up if you don't breathe right while you go up, you know? So there's a very interesting feeling of, hey, you're committed. You're in it now. It was almost like going on a mission, you know, once that you cross that line of departure and you know, like, hey, you know, you're not necessarily guaranteed to go home, you know? So for me, it was that serious, you know? So I went down there, focused, and actually had a great time, operated efficiently, effectively, had no gear issues. We saw this really cool American flag on the Yukon, and we unraveled it, me and the boys. You know, I tried to get like a picture of them, but I was, you know, working with my GoPro down there. It was dark out down there. It was a whole nother world. Just swimming around a wreck is just kind of awe-inspiring to take your breath away. Just being that deep underwater is just a whole nother feeling, you know. It's a different type of cold under there. It's everything's different, you know. So it really got me even more comfortable in the water. So then when I swim with the client, we're only going to like 60. You know, it's like no factor. It's like we're only going like a couple bar down. It's like it's really nothing. When you've been that deep, when you've been to at least 90, then we can go down to where things around 120 recreationally. So that deep dive, seeing that ship down there, being that deep in the water, I would say is very important if you're going to dive with a client, because it, you know, stretches your ability out to here. Whereas recreationally with a client, you're probably only going to go to like here or here, probably. So I really would recommend for any EP agent who's going to do something like this, who's going to scuba dive with his client, to go through the same pipeline I would, all the way up to rescue diver. I did all the way up to rescue diver. The peak performance buoyancy helps you just sharpen your skills. You know what I mean? The advanced air, the enriched air, and the nitrous, that really helps you understand how to test the air and what to look for, and the different even health concerns that come with getting bad air and bad mixes and things like that. And then the advanced open water is the one where you do all the four fun dives. And then obviously the rescue diver is important because, you know, you want to be able to have the medical backup, just like we do TCCC on land. You really want to be able to understand how to get clients out of the water. The rescue diver was awesome to understand how to do all the rescue breathing, how to take a client's gear off and get them to, or anyone's gear off while doing the rescue breathing, how to, you know, take care of someone should any of the, you know, handful of expected types of emergencies arise during your dive or even while you're on the boat, and how to use all the medical equipment relative to diving and water sports and things like that. So, you know, it was like TCCC for the water. Awesome, fun course. Boom. Once again, I'd like to give a shout out to SCUBA Center of Temecula. Thanks so much for letting us train with you guys. You guys are awesome. Phil Rubino, you're the man. Scuba Phil. Scuba Phil is awesome. So just one more shout out for him. And his Instagram handle is Phil Rubino 6. PHILRUBINO 6. It's on the screen on Instagram if you want to follow him and all his dive stuff and his cool stuff. Blow him up. He's a great instructor. He's the one you want to have. All right, y'all. Until the next video or podcast, I will catch up with y'all later. Boom.